10 Unbelievable Historical Food and Drink Artifacts. But first, thanks Anastasia for leaving us this comment on the Russian military technology video. We make sure to keep up with the most interesting recent information out there. Let us know which artifact here you find the most interesting, and maybe we'll feature you in an upcoming video. Number 10. 5,500-year-old honey. Ceramic jars contain the world's oldest honey we found in the country of Georgia, located around the Caucasus Mountains. After close examination, it was declared the world's oldest jar of honey. Like in ancient Egypt, honey was often packed for people's journeys to the afterlife. At the site, archaeologists uncovered the teeth of a female noble woman who was believed to have been of a high status because of the artifacts that were buried with her. This happened in 2003 during the construction of an oil pipeline in the area. Archaeologists also found the world's oldest shoe in this area, which are making people wonder how advanced this civilization was around 5,000 years ago. Number 9. Bog butter. How would you like to spread your toast with a little bit of bog butter? Sounds yummy, right? 22 pounds of this stuff was recently discovered in Ireland, dating back 2,000 years. It was actually buried in a bog and apparently is still edible. This ancient dairy product managed to stay well preserved due to the cold temperatures of Northern Ireland and low oxygen in the bog, and allegedly it smelled like cheese. Some claim that this could have been an offering to the gods in order to keep the area safe from natural disasters. This was later carbon dated and transported to a natural history museum where they could preserve it better. Butter often spoiled quickly in ancient times, and the best way to keep it edible was to bury it underground. Other bog butter discoveries were found encased in wood or animal hide. Number 8. Oldest noodle discovery. Who do you think was the first to invent noodles? If you guessed the Italians, you're wrong. The oldest noodles were actually found at the Lagia archaeological dig site on the Yellow River in China, so it might have been the Chinese the entire time. No other remarkable noodle discovery even comes close, with these dating back to 2000 BC. These wonderfully preserved long noodles were found inside a sealed bowl that was buried 10 feet deep. These were made from a grain that only grows in China naturally, called the millet. The fine art of Chinese cuisine goes back quite some time, and even preparing ones like these with today's technology would still be quite difficult. The archaeologists claim that this shows a very high level of processing and culinary sophistication. Number 7. Oldest bottle of wine. If you came across the world's oldest bottle of wine, would you be willing to give it a swig? As we all know, wine gets better with age, but after more than 1,000 years, would it still be good? German historians had to think about this when they came across the world's oldest bottle of wine that dates back to 350 AD. This was believed to have been produced by the Romans, who ran a local vineyard in this area. A wine professor stated that it could be microbiologically safe and not spoiled, but it would probably not taste very good. The wine would be quite shocked when exposed to air finally. Many people believe that the liquid inside the bottle should be subjected to scientific analysis, but everyone has been hesitant to open it up. It's currently being held at the Pfalz Historical Museum in Germany, where it's remained unopened. Number 6. Birthplace of the peanut. Ever wonder the history of food sometimes? The plant discovered in Bolivia appears to be a living relic of a prehistoric plant that was relative to the peanut. It turns out peanuts are a hybrid of two plants. No, not peas and nuts. Researchers compared DNA of the two plants in the person's hand you see here and managed to transform them into a peanut. This happened about 10,000 years ago, and it's quite remarkable our ancient ancestors were capable of splicing genes. Number 5. Ancient bread. We've all heard of the catastrophic day that took place when Mount Vesuvius wiped out the residents of Pompeii about 2,000 years ago. But we don't always know about the amazing relics that it left behind, apart from the human statues it created like you see from this photo. Thanks to this horrific day, we're able to see what their food looked like too. This loaf of bread withstood the test of time and is still preserved to this day. It actually dates back to 69 BC. The reason it still has its triangular marks was because it was wrapped with string in order to carry it. It also gives the modern world a better idea how and why things were done in ancient times. No one's gonna be making this into a sandwich anytime soon. It's covered in volcanic ash from Mount Vesuvius and even has a traditional Roman stamp on it. Many people have trouble getting over the fact that it still remarkably maintains its exact shape and survived an apocalyptic volcanic explosion. Because of this discovery, chefs can now recreate this ancient bread and get a taste of what life was like in ancient Roman times. Number 4. Olive oil discovery. It truly is interesting, especially from a point of view of a nutritionist, what exactly mankind ate thousands of years ago. People mainly survived eating the bare minimum of calories necessary, therefore relying on extremely nutritious foods most of the time. Ancient people in Israel, as far back as 8000 BC, began domesticating olive trees. Most researchers believe that olive oil was a staple food in the Mediterranean, especially during the Roman era. This pot here was found with residue of olive oil near the Lower Galilee region of northern Israel. This is the oldest known discovery of olive oil, but there's a good chance it was widespread across the Mediterranean. This healthy substance helped our ancient ancestors flourish and build civilizations, so feel free to use some of it on your pasta. Number 3. Vintage cheese. Would you be willing to try a slice of cheese that dates back to 1600 BC and found next to an ancient Chinese mummy? Some cheese gets better as it ages, but we're not too sure how well this will go. Maybe you could pair it with some ancient wine and have yourself an ancient wine and cheese party. Maybe. Archaeologists found it basically vacuum-packed with the mysterious mummies you see here. This was found in the Taklamakan Desert in China. It dates back precisely to 1615 BC, making it one of the oldest pieces of cheese ever recorded. It's not exactly sure why someone would want to bury a piece of cheese with themselves in the afterlives, considering the fact that it's sort of hard to eat when you're, dead. Some sites claim that the cheese you see here that was discovered is still edible, but there doesn't seem to be a long line of volunteers willing to try it. Number 2. 125-year-old beer. Canada is known for having some great brews. Some brands like Labatt Blue and Molson are popular among Canadians, but this scuba diver here came across something that was one of a kind. John Cruise was scuba diving in the waters near Halifax, Nova Scotia, when he came across a remarkable discovery. This beer bottle here is more than 125 years old and completely unopened. And yes, someone finally gave it a try. It was somewhat of a miracle he found it, and it was located beneath 30 feet of water. The beer was still safe for human consumption since the cork was still intact. The IPA from London smelled like rotten eggs, according to John, but he don't always get the chance to drink history, so he gave it a try anyways. He was sadly disappointed and said it tasted like it smelled. Just awful. And number 1. 14,000-year-old meat. Before we start indulging in cheese, bread, and wine, our prehistoric ancestors had mainly survived on meat from hunted animals. Fossil hunters in Florida found bones of a mastodon that they believe were left over from an ancient tribe. The crew uncovered a handful of bones that contained knife marks, meaning the bones were scraped for the meat that was once on them. Here you see the parallel grooves that are evidence of this being used as a food source. Stone tools like you see here were found at the site and were actually pretty sharp, but it would have taken quite a while ripping meat off the bones of this huge mastodon. These artifacts were actually found at Page Ladson Sinkhole, just southeast of Tallahassee, Florida. Anyone else kind of curious of what mastodon meat must have tasted like? Our ancient ancestors will be the only ones to know unless we decide to clone these.